Next, it is snow falling, skis carving, dinner turning into chaos. God bless him. No way. And the whole town acting like it is personally offended by this guy's pain. The movie cuts from humiliation to spectacle, like it is shifting gears mid-hill, turning throwaway moments into set pieces and quotable beats that hit before you even realize you are smiling. But underneath that bright, ridiculous pace, the film is carrying something heavier. One scene was so dark, the studio demanded a replacement. After it was over, the lead did not just hate it, he carried the grudge for years. And buried in the frame is a blink and you miss it mystery the movie never explains. These are 10 weird facts about Better Off Dead, the cult classic that turned teen misery into a quote machine and made the pain go down easy. Number 1. Better Off Dead plays like pure sugar chaos, a cartoon universe where heartbreak gets hit with snowballs, saxophones, and a paperboy who will not stop collecting $2. It feels too silly to be personal, which is exactly why it works as camouflage, because it was personal. Steve Holland wrote and directed the film as his first shot behind the camera, and he didn't invent Lane Meyer's humiliation out of thin air. His own high school girlfriend left him for the captain of the ski team, and that wound became the spine of the story. He kept journals of the way he spiraled afterward, then rebuilt that pain into comedy that moves fast enough to hide the bruise while still letting you feel it. Even the film's darkest beat carries that same truth. Holland has described trying to do something similar in real life, only for the moment to collapse into absurd disaster. A plastic garbage can giving way, a pipe breaking, water pouring everywhere, and his mother storming in furious about the damage instead of the despair. That's the engine of Better Off Dead. Pain shows up and the universe answers with ridiculous consequences, so it doesn't have to sit in silence. Years later, life doubled back. Holland said his ex tracked him down after seeing the film and admitted she had no idea how deeply it affected him, even saying she ended up in therapy because of it. Then she sent him cookies, like a strange human apology delivered through baked goods. So when you watch the movie now, the comedy hits different. It isn't random, it's a survival strategy with punchlines. Number 2. It didn't begin with a pitch meeting or a studio plan. It began with a small, painful short film that was supposed to land like tragedy and accidentally revealed the exact kind of filmmaker Holland really was. In the early 1980s, savage Steve Holland made an autobiographical short called My 11-Year-Old Birthday Party. He didn't build it to be cute, he built it to hurt. The whole thing was meant to play like a small tragedy, the kind of memory you keep in your pocket because it still stinks. Then it screamed at the Los Angeles Film Festival. Henry Winkler watched it, and instead of reacting with pity, he laughed. That sounds like a misunderstanding, but it was actually a diagnosis. Winkler saw the real engine inside Holland's storytelling. The pain wasn't the end of the story. The pain was the launch pad. The awkwardness, the humiliation, the spiral, the way life keeps kicking you when you're already down. Winkler didn't see tragedy. He saw a comedy hiding in plain sight. So he took Holland to lunch and said something that reframed everything. If you've got sad stories, you've got movies. Holland tried to correct him. He told Winkler the short wasn't supposed to be funny, that it came from a real place. Winkler didn't back off. He leaned in harder, because that was exactly the point. Real is what makes it funny without feeling fake. And then he asked the question that turned a festival moment into a career detour. Do you have any more sad stories? Holland did, and Winkler did something most first-time filmmakers never get handed, especially not from a star who doesn't have to care. He gave Holland an office at Paramount, a real place to sit, to write, to turn those sad stories into a feature script with a quiet belief behind it, that heartbreak could be flipped into something fast, strange, and watchable. That chain reaction lit the fuse. A sad little film got the wrong laugh, and Henry Winkler turned that laugh into a career door that should have stayed locked. Next came the hard part, choosing a lead the studio didn't believe in. Number 3. Once Holland had the script in hand, he didn't start shopping, he started locking pieces into place. John Cusack was the center in his head, and the studio fought him like he was making a mistake. To them, he was still the nerdy guy, and they didn't believe he could carry something this strange. The push for Cusack came from Henry Winkler first. Winkler had already worked with him on The Sure Thing, which he executive produced, and he had the kind of confidence that doesn't sound like a suggestion, it sounded like certainty. At Winkler's urging, savage Steve Holland watched an early screening and felt the lock click immediately. He wasn't shopping for options anymore. In his head, the movie now had a face. The studio still resisted, partly because The Sure Thing hadn't even been released yet, so they weren't seeing the version of Cusack Winkler and Holland were responding to. They were judging him from older impressions, and once a studio decides you're not that guy, it can take a fight to change their minds. So Holland fought, not politely, not quietly. He argued that if they cast Cusack now, they'd be ahead of the curve, grabbing him before audiences redefined him once The Sure Thing hit. It wasn't just a director pitching a preference, it was Holland protecting the tone of his whole movie. Because Lane couldn't be played broad, he needed that Cusack sincerity, the kind that makes insane scenes feel weirdly real. Eventually, the studio caved, and once Cusack was locked in, Holland didn't just have his lead, he had his center of gravity. Now he could do the next crucial thing, stack the movie with scene stealers who'd make Lane's misery feel even louder. Number 4. This movie lands because the romance is flawless. It lands because the side characters refuse to behave like supporting, hijacking scenes until the whole story feels slightly unstable. Steve Holland didn't stumble into that energy, he hunted for it. Curtis Armstrong was the first lock. Holland watched Risky Business and couldn't shake what Armstrong did as Miles, a second banana roll that still walks away with the spotlight. So Holland didn't wait for a long search. He called his agent and offered him Charles DeMar on the spot. That's why Charles hits like a live wire. The jello snorts, the random confidence, the way he delivers advice like he's starting a cult. He doesn't just help Lane, he warps the movie's reality, turning heartbreak into chaos you can laugh at. Then came Roy Stalin, the ski captain rival, and that casting happened through a perfect accident. Aaron Dozier walked into the process and, by Holland's memory, didn't even know who Savage Steve was. Instead of flattering the director, he tossed an insult, calling Holland a chubby kid and a fat surfer. The twist is Holland didn't get offended, he got clarity, because Roy isn't supposed to act arrogant. Arrogance is the character's oxygen. So when Dozier threw that shot out casually, it wasn't disrespect, it was proof. Holland didn't need to imagine the bully, he was standing right there. That was Holland's casting rule. If a character is supposed to hit, the actor has to hit before the joke even arrives, and nobody in this movie commits harder than the smallest character with the biggest threat. Number 5. That paperboy doesn't feel like a normal comedy character. It feels like a curse with a newspaper. He pops up everywhere, never blinks, never negotiates, and delivers the same demand like it's a death sentence: $2 cash. That intensity came from real life first. Steve Holland has said the paperboy was inspired by an actual kid who hounded him for payment the exact same way, turning a small petty debt into a personal haunting. So when it was time to cast the role, the job wasn't to find a cute kid, it was to find someone who could play it dead serious, like he believed the money mattered more than reality. They found that in 12-year-old Damian Slade. At the audition, Slade didn't try to be charming. He showed up in a leather jacket with a headshot that looked weirdly menacing, and he played the paperboy like a tiny serial killer who just happened to work for a newspaper route. No wink, no sitcom energy, pure unsettling commitment. That was the whole point. If the actor treated it like a joke, the joke dies. If he treats it like a mission, the audience laughs because they're slightly nervous, and on set, he didn't soften. In the car scene, the paperboy slams Lane's windshield with the newspaper. It looks like a perfectly timed gag, but the impact was real enough that Slade actually cracked the glass. The crew had to replace the windshield, and Slade later admitted he was proud of it, because cracking a windshield with a newspaper is hard, even for an adult. That's why the line became immortal. It isn't clever wordplay, it's delivery. It sounds like a curse that keeps following you, a tiny character who commits so hard that eventually the movie itself starts to feel like it owes him money. Number 6. The pig burger scene is the moment the movie stops pretending it's just a teen comedy. Lane is already miserable, trapped behind the counter, and then the film does something that feels almost illegal. The food comes alive. A hamburger starts playing guitar and sings a Van Halen song, like the